Good afternoon, Dean Davison, liveweatherblogs.com, meteorologist here. Time for a Irene update, and that's what we're concentrating on. We're concentrating on Irene because Irene is a huge threat for days now. It's had its eyes set on the Carolinas, and still today, 12Z run of the GFS says North Carolina, you're gonna get hit. So let's take a look at the model. This is the 12Z run, and we're gonna start now. And we're gonna move this in the process. We're looking at 42 hours. It'll be approaching the Bahamas as a strong Cat 2-3 hurricane. Will then start paralleling the coast at 72 hours with thoughts on the Florida coast. You're going to probably start getting some wind on the Florida coast, Jacksonville down through Vero Beach, Port St. Lucie, that area. We're looking at probably some winds approaching tropical storm, possibly force winds, and that would not surprise me if we get a tropical storm watch or warning go out relatively soon for the area in Florida, even though it's not going to maintain a direct hit. This will then continue at 90 hours to be approaching the North Carolina coastline. Winds will start picking up. We'll also start getting some rain popping north of the storm, so areas such as Roanoke may start getting some rain because we're going to get the high and the low start coming together. That's going to also push the isobars tighter together, and that'll make the wind stronger, so we can actually see some indirect stuff going on there. And then we start getting tropical storm force winds about 96 hours out, rain along the coastline. 102 hours, we're looking at a landfall 102 to 108 hours, somewhere between the North Carolina South Carolina border and the Outer Banks. That's the GFS shows right on the Outer Banks at this point. This is Cat 3. Winds will be picking up in central Virginia and central North Carolina. 114 hours. This starts getting bad for Virginia Beach. Roanoke starts getting some wind, rain. We're also going to look at New Jersey and Delaware, really starting to get it. And then we're going to be really getting blasted based on this run at the 120 hour in New Jersey, Delaware areas. 126 hours just creamed. If this stays what it is, I mean, New York City, Philly, New Jersey, you're just going to get creamed with this storm. Lots of wind, lots of rain. And this will just continue up and make landfall again somewhere in the area of Massachusetts. So this storm is looking bad for a lot of locations, and as you see, it moves out. But that's just the GFS run. The 12Z is the latest GFS run. So it's a scary thought. Landfall still says North Carolina landfall, and further north looks really bad. That's on that. We're going to look at the Euro. I'm going to look at the European model, and this is scary too. This is why you have to make a consensus. 120, it puts it right on the South Carolina-North Carolina border, and blasts North Carolina and Virginia, and then would take it west of Philadelphia. This would be a worst case scenario for places like Philadelphia, Atlantic City, because this would be, you'd be on the eastern quadrant, more chances of tornadoes, higher winds, a lot more effects. So if you take the consensus between the GFS and the Euro, which are the two best operating models at this current point, that would take it right up the middle. If I took it right up the middle, we'd be looking at a North Carolina. So it would still be a North Carolina hit somewhere in central coast of North Carolina, then moving up into Virginia, and then curving it into New Jersey. So that, as a consensus, is not looking good still for any of us. So we're looking at a North Carolina, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia will have a landfall, and then again further up north. The conditions just get worse on each of the two model runs. No matter what way you look at it, it's going to look bad for North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, parts of Pennsylvania and New York, and parts of the Northeast. It's just going to be a bad time. And we're getting closer and closer to the storm, and the models are trending. European has trended 4 model runs in a row, and that's really good for the European, let me tell you. So that's a scary thought in this process. And then if you take the GFS, which has been pretty close, little trend to the east. The only thing I see with the trending to the east is this is a flatter trough, which means a westward progression may occur. So they are in upper levels. We have to look at that. If a western trend continues, we'll be looking at it more in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and probably worse effects up north too. You know, with the computer models, they all take them relatively into the Outer Banks of North Carolina. DFS a little further east now, but if you take the H wharf still into North Carolina, you take the consensus between the two, that drives it still into North Carolina, and then up into, this does not have the European on this map, and like I said, like Mike Masco said earlier, you pay for that. So that's what we have to look at right now. Look at the 6Z run, you can see these are all the models that go into the H wharf, and there's that consensus right up here in North Carolina. Why there's a consensus in North Carolina? Look at the run right there. This is the early model runs coming into the 12Z. So this is what's so interesting about this system, and just in Ocracoke, I don't know how to say that well. Ocracoke Island in North Carolina. Mandatory evacuation for all visitors Wednesday. Voluntary evacuations at this point for Wednesday for residents. So there's already evacuation orders going up in North Carolina at this time. It's 12:51 Eastern Time on Tuesday. So get ready to leave if you're in the Outer Banks, North Carolina. Here's the latest image, visible image from Irene. What's one thing you see in this that you haven't seen which shows strengthening? Look at the eye. The eye is forming here on Irene pretty nicely. And like I said, this is going to be the projection where it's going. And I'll show you on the now and put this in motion. You can see here it is. The eye is forming. No real eye here. Here it goes. Boom. Here's your eye forming. And watch the movement here. This is a little concerning to me if you watch it. There's a little bit of a west jog. This might go just underneath where the forecast point is by the Hurricane Center. So that's what you got to look at for these little wobbles. And this is all that is really, is a wobble to the west. And a nice eye forming on the storm. Beautiful outflow. Buzzsaw look. Beautiful outflow on the storm. Not really being interrupted by anything at this point. Just nice, symmetric hurricane. No real dry air intrusion. And this is going into the Bahamas. So the Bahamas, you're going to get rocked real soon. And so I'd be preparing if you're not prepared already. Anybody along the eastern seaboard, anybody in North Carolina, like I said, Ocracoke Island, North Carolina, voluntary evacuation for residents, mandatory evacuation for visitors, starting 5 a.m. on Wednesday. So you can get it together, guys. And anybody living in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, even up the coast, get your hurricane preparations in place, because this looks to be a pretty nasty storm. I'm gonna have a little bit more on this a little bit later. Like I said, we're doing multiple blogs here on liveweatherblogs.com to keep you updated with the latest information. We've had some great blogs this morning by Mike Masco, Rob Garino, Levi just put out a really good blog. Check them all out and keep updated with liveweatherblogs.com, because we're going to make sure that you're ahead of the storm and prepared for it. For liveweatherblogs.com, meteorologist Dean Davison, have a great afternoon, and I'll probably update you in a few hours.